How to really listen to people so you actually understand what's coming out of their mouth. Hey, I'm Donnie Bovian, the CEO and founder of Success Champions Networking and the author of Endless Stream of Referrals. And this is Growth Mode, where we talk about sales, business development, and growing your business. Hanging out with me, as always, is my buddy Kevin Snow, the sales and automation tactician and genius. And hang out with us as we dive in. How do you actually really listen to somebody? All right, Kevin. So, active listening, one of my greatest skills in the world. I'm absolutely suck at listening to people. You know, so where do we go? How do we teach people to, proactively listen to people so they actually can understand what's being said?
Well, I think understanding that it's actually a learned skill is the first step for a lot of people. There are going to be people out there who are just really naturally better listeners because that is their personality type. If you're a disc profile person, your S's are those people. But it is a skill that anyone can be learned. That can be learned by anyone.
Anybody can be learned. All of a sudden, Kevin just sounded like he was from West Virginia. Anyone can be learned. I learned you good.
Yeah.
Holy
Uh,
Lord.
but but that's the thing, because it's really easy, especially when you're in sales and you're in front of a client and you're thinking about, all right, so what do I need to say, what do I want to do next, you're running strategy through your head to stop listening and miss key parts. So there's things I've had to learn to do to become a better listener. And especially since COVID and the lockdowns, my listening has gone to shit because now I have my desk is full of distractions. So
Just like the distraction you sent to me while I was in the middle of a meeting today.
yeah. Yep.
So literally the Wheel of Time, promo video came out that's coming out on Amazon Prime. And to me, it's the second greatest freaking book series written in all time. And second to Harry Potter, in case you're wondering. But I know you weren't, Kevin. But um, so here I am sitting in a meeting, and all I want to do is watch this promo video, which I did, which means I wasn't paying attention to the meeting I was supposed to be, a part of. So I mean, I agree that distractions are a massive things that are happening to a lot of us because most of us run multiple monitors on our screens, where we've got our phones and TikTok and everything else. Um, so it can be very difficult to listen to people. For me, I've come up with a few tricks that have helped tremendously be more proactive in listening to others. And the first and foremost is I've got to understand who the heck I'm talking to and communicate to them effectively. The high C and the disc profile, which is really more of your Sheldon from the Big Bang Theory, Spock from Star Trek, if you're into that kind of stuff. Albert Einstein, if you don't know who any of those other folks are, but they're the more slow, soft spoken people that tend to be more detailed. Um, they're the people that put way too much details in a simple story, and I'll squirrel out in a conversation and have to force myself to get back to it. So I've had to create a bunch of little tips and tricks, not tits and tricks, but tips and tricks to be able to effectively listen to somebody. Oh, that's going to be an amazing portion to be clipped out of this episode. Leave that shit in there, Greg, because this is real life and you fuck up and say stupid shit. But I've gotten good at a couple of things, and probably my greatest thing I've learned is to repeat back the words of what somebody is saying to me and use their words specifically. And I've got a funny story I'll tell here in a minute about that. But Kevin, how do you really make sure you're tuned in and listen to somebody?
So for me, because when I'm meeting with clients, it's a lot of talking about, what are their processes and having them walk me through what their steps are and what they're doing and how things progress and all that stuff. So there can be a lot of detail in there. So for me, I'll stop. the conversation at different times and just say, all right, so here's what I heard you say. Let me walk you through what you just told me so I can make sure I have it right. And I'll go through it, and then I'll get them to nod their head or say, yep, that's exactly right. And they'll say, awesome. All right, so I have a question about this part. You said this. What does that mean? Or I'll ask something that's going to cause them to dive deeper into a portion of their process so that we can get that next level of content from them. And then from that, then I'll go, all right, so let's go on. Now we're on step 6, and we'll keep going with the process. But a lot of repeat, asking deeper questions is key for what I do to make sure I'm not missing stuff. And when you're having that high detailed conversation, which is what C's do, it's really easy to miss key parts. So being able to do that recap and review step is going to be key to make sure that you aren't leaving out really important stuff.
What's fascinating to me is I was really, and this is, I'm not even being a smartass here. I was really trying to stay with you as you were going through that, but I was squirreling out so bad I had to start doodling over here. And it's one of the tricks that I've learned over the years. And it wasn't that your information was boring. I just squirrel out so damn fast that it's hard for me to stay attuned. So, one of the things that I do all the time is I'll doodle over here looking like Bob Ross with a pencil. And if you guys haven't watched the Bob Ross documentary, holy hell, what a fucking shit show of his life and how they destroyed his name and brand over the years because a couple of greedy assholes. But um, I digress. But doodling does absolutely help me tremendously when it comes to listening. But I've found that I have to control the conversations. And one of the ways I do that is, I go through a very specific process when I talk to people to get them down the path and to tell the stories I need them to tell. And the only time I get thrown off is with the high C's, because if they're not great at actively communicating, I have to really pull information out of them, because they get to points where they're like, okay, I said exactly what it was. And there's no natural flow oftentimes for them to come back and want to ask another ancillary question to make it a dialogue. They're
Yeah,
waiting
if
for the next moment.
yeah, if you ask us a yes or no question, we're gonna answer yes or no.
Well, even
Don't.
beyond that, beyond a yes or no, I mean, it's once you've answered the question, they pause and they're done. Okay, answer the question. And it's almost like they're waiting for you to ask another versus making it a dialogue back and forth. So I've learned to have multiple questions in the hopper to go, because there's nothing worse than being in a conversation with somebody and they're like, well, yes, my dog's name is Bob. And they do just that. And in my head, I'm screaming, okay, give me something. Or they do just the opposite and they go, oh, my dog's name is Bob. He is a golden retriever. He's 13 years old. He has bright brown skin, a little white tip on his tail. And 45 minutes later, they're still telling me about fucking Bob. So what I've had to do is learn to guide the conversation through questions, through strategies. But it's really helpful to be able to actually repeat back words that they're actually saying. And I've probably told this story before on podcasts and stuff, but my wife and I are at a very hoity-toity, penguin suit tuxedo style event, and at a really nice restaurant. And we got there and we met this really, really, really nice older couple. As we're talking, they tell us about their chalet up in the mountains. And they go on complete detail about how awesome this chalet is and all the details. Well, as of, you do at those type of events, we ended up sitting at different tables. And after dinner, we're walking around, we're talking to a couple of other folks, and that older couple comes by, and I quickly waved them over to join our conversation. And as they walked up, I looked at the other couple we were talking to, and I said to the older folks, I'm like, would you mind telling them about your cabin up in the woods? And both these older folks, man, they just went red in the face. I mean, they're fucking pissed. And both my wife and I could see it. The couple we were talking to could see it. And I said, I'm sorry, did I say something rude? Was that a conversation between us? That was I not supposed to say that? And the older gentleman, without skipping a beat, looked at me and goes, it's a chalet. And now, look, guys, I'm a simple country boy from Texas. I don't know what the fucking differences of a chalet and a cabin is. I do now. It's literally square footage. But the fact that I called it a cabin, which he compared to a hunting shack, really highly offended him. So go ahead.
You don't get to call it a chalet unless it's in the Alps.
Right.
Th- Then it's a chalet. If you're in the Rockies or Appalachians or any other mountain range in the United States, it is a cabin. That I live in Minnesota and we have lakes and woods and everyone has really nice houses at them, like $1 million houses, multiple bedrooms, multiple bathrooms, house add-on houses for their guests to stay in, and they still call them cabins.
Right. Right.
It's like,
Yeah, I don't understand it, but in their defense, we were at this hoity-toity event. There's probably some decorum that should have been followed, but I would have never in a million years realized I was fixing to offend them by calling their chalet a cabin. But it's those little things like that that we'll often do in conversations that completely derail. I mean, yeah, take somebody like Kevin. If I say one program versus another, he's going to be hung up on what the fuck am I talking about, trying to figure out what that program doesn't do that. Why are you talking about fucking Kevin? Just keep up with me, all right? And that's a normal conversation between the two of us, but it comes down to, you've got to be genuinely interested in somebody, right? And really curious about the world and what they're doing and the things that they're doing to get their business, their life, so you can have a real conversation.
so when I was starting out in sales, doing the corporate thing, and I was meeting with 15 to 20 new clients a week, they start you off with this really horrible pitch deck that you run, and I really quickly learned that that's not how to do it, and I've started figuring out, all right, so how do I qualify and how do I do the questioning? And I actually put together a questioning strategy that I would follow as I went through a sales call, especially the initial meeting where I'm trying to figure out what's going on, who they're doing, and if we can even help them, and if they even are a good fit for us. And I would use that so that I would make sure I got the right information, but it also allowed me to now start thinking about, all right, so I need to get to this point in the conversation. What are my cues? What are they saying that's going to allow me to start asking those types of questions? So for me, it was always, I'd start with really broad questions at the top. So, company, how long you've been around, how many employees, multiple locations, all that stuff. And then I just keep dialing in deeper, and I'd go from general questions to operational stuff to financial stuff, and just get really, so you get really safe questions. How long has your company been in business? To, hey, how much does it cost you to do this one thing? What happens if this breaks? And you're getting into the more the detailed stuff. But it forced me to listen to the cues so that I could ask the right next question,
Mm,
so that the call didn't sound like I was doing an interview.
right. Yeah. I mean, I was interviewed on a podcast once upon a time. It's the reason I got into podcasting, or I started my own show, I should say. Was the gentleman that was interviewing me literally went, question one. And I answered question one. Then when he got done, he's like, question two. And I answered question two. And then he was like, question three. And I was like, oh shit. So I tried to ask him about a show and how he got into it. And he's like, question four. So when you have those series of questions, as Kevin said, you've got to make sure it's a dialogue back and forth and not just an interview process to get people through that.
That had to be an excruciating hour.
Um, The episode aired, but I realized he only aired about 20 minutes of an hour-long conversation because I started making kind of fun of him towards the end because I was just trying to fucking
No.
entertain. I was trying to entertain myself at this point because it was so fucking boring. And I was just trying to pull something out of him, but by God, he was getting through his questions. So I think the trick with this one, guys, really is to be really invested in somebody is you got to be genuinely interested. You've got to be able to use their questions back to them or use their statements, phrases back to them, repeat them. You've got to ask for clarification of what they're saying so they can dive in. Make sure you're using their exact words and phrases. as you go through. Have a series of questions prepared that you can ask this other individual, and then don't get stoic in that process to get through, all these questions. So, as always, guys, if you got any value out of this one, any tips or tricks that really work in your world, do us a favor, make sure you subscribe, click the bell if you're on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, subscribe and follow. And please, guys, tell one person about this show, and let's continue to impact and change and help as many people as possible. Love you, mean it. See you, bye.